Welcome to the Catch Some Soulshine podcast, and I'm your host, Renee Bova. I'm here to share drastic self-care measures that will help empower you to awaken brilliance after life's darkest moments. I've discovered countless measures that help heal and transform you so that you can live a joyful, empowered life without feeling trapped in the past, without clinging to the opinions of others, and without fear of vulnerability in a community setting. I'm so glad you're here. So grab a cup of coffee because it's time to catch some soulshine. Today, I am super excited to talk with Sonya Janisse, and it's just kind of, I don't know, strange, coincidental, whatever. We met through a mutual friend on LinkedIn, had a little call that was supposed to be 15 minutes?
Yeah.
And we talked for probably an hour and a half because we have so many synchronicities and common values. And I'm super excited for Sonya to share all her knowledge with you because there's buckets. I'd like you to introduce yourself so they
Okay.
get to know you a little bit, and then we'll start our little conversation.
Perfect. Well, my name's Sonya, and I was born and raised in a small town. I went to high school where there was one traffic light, and we lived in the country from there. So, that's important when it comes to living in the real world. I didn't know what mind games were. I didn't know what narcissism was, but I did know what it was like when your neighbors knocked on the door and asked for sugar, flour, salt, or to sit and join you for a meal and have wholesome conversations about the garden and the weather, and it's just different, right? So, you take what's different and you try to throw it into a tradition. Boxes. I can barely say the word without tripping up. And you have to mold with the flow. You have no choice. That's how you survive in today's world. You have to be adaptable. So you add all of those things together. I am a creator of sorts. I've written books. I create podcasts. I'm dabbling into painting right now. And I love my grandson. I love my family. It's family first, and I know I am coming off the end of my own personal mountain because we all have them. It doesn't matter where you're at in your story, we all have these mountains. And admittedly, the date of this recording, I am on the downhill spiral of my mountain. But it helps me look at things differently. And, that's what we're here for today. So that's what my books teach you. That's what my podcasts teach you. But most importantly, it's all about fun.
Yeah.
So,
we didn't talk about that because I too am from a small town, born and
oh,
raised. Yeah.
really?
And
Yeah, it makes a
we
difference.
we shared neighbors, and my
Yeah.
grandparents always had a garden, and we had fresh vegetables, and
You
we
hung your laundry?
yes, we hung our laundry out on the line. My mom still does. When we were kids, we used to pack our lunches and go on 8-hour bike rides out in the country. And we'd stop and have lunch, and we'd be gone all day. And my mom never worried about us. She never had any concerns. And we'd come home. We'd play outside until it was dark. She'd ring the bell and we'd come home. It's just so different now than it ever
It,
used to be.
it is. And when we take that difference, which is what created our core values, which is what has made that root chakra safe and secure or lack thereof, right? It's because birds of a feather flock together. So there were like-minded people in the community having like-minded conversations. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
And you don't know what you don't know, so there's no right wrong here. But you're raised a certain way and certain things make you comfortable, certain things keep you safe, certain things bring you happiness, certain things help you become a lot more creative, like those 8-hour trail rides, right? And then somehow we forget that in our adult life.
Mhm. We sure do.
Hmm.
We get busy. I was just we were talking earlier before we started recording about the week that I've had, double booked and, little things happening and just feeling my energy up here. And I've been very tired. So I'm sleeping. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. And normally I have a ton of energy to get things done, but not this week because it's just been so overwhelming. Of course, I'm getting ready to go next week to Atlanta, so that'll be fun, but it's a matter of listening to me, listening to my body, and when my body says, "You are tired. You can't stay up and do some of your projects tonight. You have to go to bed." So I do.
So tell me, I realize this is going to be hard, okay? Um, I realize that I am asking you to be naturally aware of where you're at with this question, but how much of an impact, what kind of impact did that make on you?
The fatigue?
Hmm. In what areas of your life?
Um, I really didn't have the creativity that I normally do. So I
Okay.
know when I'm fatigued and my energy is not at a good place, I don't have the capacity to be creative.
Okay. So your decreased creative capacity. What else did you notice?
I kind of went into myself. Normally, I'm extremely outgoing and talkative, and I still, I mean, that's just who I am to a certain extent, but not as much. So I didn't have the bandwidth to learn new things or to do things that accomplish tasks on my little checklist that I wanted to do. But I, I really didn't worry about it because I knew I couldn't.
Okay. So you were aware that you couldn't do this, right? So
Hmm.
let's give everybody listening to this a visual.
Hmm.
Um, if you were to take a measuring cup and it's 1 cup at the top,
Hmm.
where would you rate yourself at that moment?
When I was really fatigued and
And
yeah,
you were starting to
probably,
notice your lack of creativity. You were starting to notice a side effect of something that you had been feeling for a
hmm,
while. It's
yeah,
like being dehydrated. The side
yes,
effect of being dehydrated are so many different things, including the wrong color pee,
yeah,
right? That's one of the side effects. But you are dehydrated long before you see the side effects.
absolutely. When I think about my cup, one of the visuals that I use is I think of a sponge, right? And for me, I always have to be filling the sponge because even if the sponge is full of water, it's slowly trickling out. And so you need to keep nurturing that and adding water to the sponge. Well, my sponge was dry. So I guess
Okay.
in terms of the cup of water, I didn't have any water in my cup.
Okay. And you're aware of this.
Yeah.
So what, now that you're aware, you know what it looks like, you know what it feels like, you know it's going to show up again.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the thing, right? We know this is going to come back.
Yeah.
It's the law of polarity. If we
Mhm.
can balance it, it's not going to swing so high in
Mhm.
the other direction. So we can't get the extremities get to us. We need to keep, and I'm not saying we need to keep our emotions status quo. We
Mhm.
need to keep our reactions
Right.
status quo so we can keep vibrating high,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
the law of polarity is going to bring us back to this point.
Mhm.
So how are we going to handle it differently next time?
Well, I'll tell you, um, just the fact that I was able to rest when I needed to is huge for me. because I have trouble listening to my body sometimes, and I push myself to the extremes. So the fact that I rested, but I think probably in the future, I might recognize that a little sooner and
Mm,
rest sooner so that it doesn't take 3 days of rest instead of maybe 1 day.
that's awesome. You're noticing.
Mhm,
You're realizing. You're
mhm.
becoming a lot more aware, and when that happens, you start to open up and expand. And then you can grow in all of these different levels, and then you're not knocked out for 3 days,
Right.
right? Yeah, or maybe so let's flip the script a little bit. As I mentioned, I'm coming from my downhill, so 6 months ago even, 3 months ago, maybe 6 months ago, let's say, I was spending anywhere between 12 to 14 hours on the couch, resting my head. Somewhere between 10, 11 o'clock in the morning until bedtime, with the exception of getting up to eat dinner, maybe clean, back to the couch or bed, so I
Mhm.
could lay my head down. Well, fast forward 6 months, and I'm getting frustrated because I'm getting restless when I'm sitting for 2 or 3 hours. It took me a long time to wrap my head around, "Wait a minute, that's progress. I've gone from 12 to 14 to 2 to 3."
Right.
And the fact that it is restlessness proves that I am mentally in a different state than where I was.
Mhm.
So we can't see these things. We
Right.
have to become aware. We have to feel them, right? And that's why I wanted to share those examples because these are not examples that we can quantify.
Yeah,
Mm,
they're personal.
they're personal.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
And just for a little context, I mean, I know some of the struggles that you went through, but, the premise of this, podcast is awakening brilliance after life's darkest moments, and obviously, you've had some dark moments, which has had you do this really deep dive to, start coaching and helping other people with like the example that you shared. So, do you mind sharing a little bit about that and what catapulted you to this profession?
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up because now, thankfully, it's just a part of my story. And it's not a part of my story that I think about very much anymore, thankfully. Again, that wasn't the case not that long ago. So, my tipping point last May 2023, and I can tell you there was stress in my life. There's always stress in our life. I was in a role at a new job because I needed my business to pick up a little bit. And I do that. I will swing in and out of the corporate world as I'm working on building the life of my dreams. I believe there's an important correlation there. So, and this is important, but I would always rather be working on my business, and that comes out and that shines bright a little bit later. So I'm having a conversation with my boss at work. I'm not agreeing. There's a lot I learned about the company that was not discussed and disclosed. Um, I didn't think to ask the questions. They didn't probably think to go over the information. But I walked into an environment where I very quickly identified that I was not a fit. It just wasn't for me. And then, there's some parts I was able to make fun, so I didn't notice at the beginning. But once it all sunk in, and then we're starting to have different conversations that I don't agree with, I am not really in a position to say anything because I'm not within my 3 months yet, right? So we get on this, I share some good news. Even identifying what that news was good news, right? So then it was about, sharing this with corporate to make sure everybody was on the same page and we were all aware and to keep all accounts protected instead of having further contact while we were sorting out all of the wrinkles, right? While we were ironing out all of the wrinkles and fine tuning everything. So anyway, information was not passed on. It wasn't valued as worthy enough. That's huge. Even if that's how something is perceived, That is huge. And I don't mean to paint this picture about this workplace, not at all. Or, it's more a contestant to my health, and just wait till we get there. Now you have to remember I ran a 5K in April, 3 weeks prior, and I was at the hospital because I made it 4K without tearing a calf muscle. And then they said my blood pressure was high, but I just came from a race. So just to put things into context, so that's kind of how, yes, I could have still lost weight. I was journaling, I was meditating, I was eating okay. There was room for plenty of improvement. However, I was on the right track, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I go to a few minutes later, I'm on the phone call with my boss, and I'm like, listen, I need to go to the hospital. I can barely open my mouth to chew a salad, like to get my mouth in. He's like, oh, I'm like, my head hurts that much. I go to the hospital, they do their thing, whatever. My heart rate or my blood pressure is high, but they're not concerned. They give me some medicine, they send me home, and I end up going back 2 days later because my hair hurt in the bathtub. My daughter had to pull me out of the bathtub, help me get dressed, and help me get 5 minutes to the hospital. My blood pressure was 222 at this point. This was the beginning of a 10-month medical sick leave. Being medically misdiagnosed and on the wrong medicine from day one, on the wrong, really strong, highly addictive medicine to combat the pain that the wrong medicine amplified from day one. So we're talking 10 months later, 9 months later, and losing that said job within 3 months, or maybe 3 weeks, or 3 months, 6 weeks, whatever, frustrated me. It didn't need to happen. It was
Right.
one thing, yes, I was consciously worried about, but at least let me get back on my feet. What is it costing you? It's costing you nothing. At least let somebody get back on their feet. Taking their identity away, or part of their identity away, or most importantly, their financials, their medical sick leave. Like, this wasn't fair to me either. And then I tried to sell my house and my tenants, and we are 9 months, 10 months later, we're still dealing with my tenants, and my house should have sold in January. So 4 months ago, 3 months ago, my house should have sold, and I'm dealing with tenants so I could have the finances to do what I need to do to survive. So here's the thing. What I was diagnosed with was considered the suicide disease, trigeminal neuralgia,
Mm-hmm.
inflamed nerves in my head, and occipital neuralgia. I saw a neurologist and a doctor in tandem. So I was on vitamins and pills. I went from taking one pill a day to taking about 20 a day. I hadn't even turned 50 yet. I turned 50 throughout this period. Okay, so now I have to remind myself, okay, my days are getting better. I'm almost able to spend all of this time focusing. Sometimes I might need to cancel and rebook. Sometimes I might stutter. Okay, -6 is cold. I can't do it. I'm on the couch for days after. My dog's going to have to wait. I'll try again in a couple days. 6 degrees Celsius is too windy. I can't do it. Although it's not diagnosed as that, I'm still showing the same symptoms without the help of that meds. So I switched my medicine, made some changes. I made some changes to my health. I have curtailed those, but I'm jumping back into those. I even took a vacation, my first vacation in 25 years. I stepped into abundance from scarcity on so many levels.
Mm-hmm.
And I found spirituality, and I openly talk about it. And I totally believe that everything was cleared out of my life that wasn't serving me.
Mm-hmm.
Whew,
That's a
that's
lot.
heavy. That's a lot.
So that scarcity mindset, I want to I really want to focus on that a little bit, only because there's so much scarcity that we don't recognize that we are clinging to. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk
I
about
had a
this.
job with another provider for years prior to this new company that I work for. And I knew that they weren't paying me the minimum, the national standard for nurse practitioner. I knew that I was doing really well for the company, but I was getting a lot of vacation time. And unlike you, my vacation time is sacred and I use it all the time.
Mhm.
That is one
It
thing
was
that I've always done. But
I will
I
never
was
not do that again, and it was a it was layers of complexity of other people's opinions and other people's priorities for the last 25 years. Game
yeah,
changer,
yeah,
game changer. I will go again in a heartbeat. So
yeah.
anyways, sidebar, go back.
So long story short, I would still be with that company had they not sold the clinic and this other company bought the company, right?
Mm. Mhm.
And then now I have a new provider. Fast forward, they're paying me my worth. They're giving me my vacation time. And not only that, but the owner of the company came and met with me personally, one to one, and, said how grateful he was for me because I'm the top producer in the company.
See?
Yeah.
See?
And so even though I thought I was coming from a lack, didn't feel like I was coming from a scarcity mindset because in my mind it was like, well, I'm going to stay with this company because they are giving me my vacation time, which is what I value. But if I do a really deep dig and dive and look at myself, it was a scarcity mindset because I didn't believe that I could do better. Now, like you, I'm doing all these other things to wake up, wake up to the fact that I can lead retreats and have groups and help people with my own business.
Right? And then that makes you shine your light like you're doing right now. Guys, isn't she beaming? And then from there, people feel safe to shine their own. So
Yes.
yes, yeah, you
And
need to be doing that.
that's
Yes.
what it's all about. I
Mm.
think, man, this is why we jive so well because that's what it's all about for me is to, I used to say to Brad, my son, all the time, I'd say, "Who you helping, Brad? Who you helping today?" And for me, that's what it's about. Like, who can I help? Who can I help today?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Where would you fall on that list of people?
Thank you for watching part 1 of my inspiring interview with Sonya Janisse. She is an accountability coach, and as you can see, she's going to keep us accountable. So don't miss part 2. If you'd like to find her, you can reach her at freshapproachfitness.ca. She is located in Canada, but she is available to help you if you are seeking. Don't forget to like and subscribe because that really does matter. Leave a comment on YouTube. And if you're watching this on Spotify or Apple or any podcast site, please subscribe to that channel and leave a comment. Rate the podcast, and I will see you next week. But as always, I have some freebies. So if you would like to download a free 11 affirmation journal, please see that link in the show notes, and you can start your journey of personal healing. See you next week.